Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome back to episode 2 of Destiny Improvements. Now, if you haven't already seen episode 1, make sure you go and check it out. But I said this week I'm going to be doing a 3-part series on improvements that I would like to see sort of like coming to Destiny in light of, say, Bungie announcing that they are already working on Destiny 2, and with all the DLC packs coming out next year. These are just sort of some ideas that I want to sort of like throw out there and say these things I believe would make Destiny much better and a much more kind of like fluid and sort of like cohesive experience. So, last episode, if you haven't seen it, was on storage and different ways to kind of like improve storage and sort of extend that across different and multiple characters. And today's focus is on items. So firstly, what I would like to see is much more variety, and I mean much more variety, in gear and weapons. You take a look at a lot of the weapons, take auto rifles for example. Pretty much every single one has the same kind of body shape, it's just got a slightly different colour. You look at all the different factions, you know, they've just got like a red version, a purple version, a black version. It's just a little bit kind of like boring unless you have an exotic. I mean, exotics do look really cool, but I think this shouldn't just be restricted to exotics. I mean, take something like the raid weapons. Crota's End, yes, some of the raid weapons do look cool, but they are effectively the exact same body of a normal weapon, just with some scale slapped on the side. Or the ones from the Vault of Glass just had a sort of bronzy paint colour to them. I think some of these weapons do really need to have a lot more variety. You know, the team at Bungie are a really talented group of people, so they can definitely sort of like kick it out of the bag. I mean, switching over to gear, for example, when sort of scrolling through Google, I came across these random sort of like fan arts of some armour, but these look so flipping awesome. I mean, imagine if you could look like this. You know, these are some Warlock armours and some Titan armours. I couldn't find any for the Hunter at the time, but these are so flipping awesome. I mean, like, honestly, there is so much stuff you could do. I mean, I'd like it if the factions, for example, just them alone, were slightly more sort of defined. Right now, they're effectively the exact same kind of kit, just with a different colour scheme, but really, when you think about the different factions, you've got like the Dead Orbit, who are these sort of like shady guys. You've got the FWC, who are these sort of, I don't know, I don't really know how to describe them, but I see them as sort of like a, you know, sports team kind of sort of thing. And then you've got like New Monarchy, who are these like royalists and things like that. You know, you would typically expect their armour to look different, and I think it'd be really cool if you could actually personalise them in that respect. Like, you know, someone should know not by your colour, but by your armour set, which faction you're aligned to. The same goes for the Vanguard, or even for like the raids. I mean, the raids do have distinctive armour sets, but I still don't think they're quite as distinctive as they should be. You look at something like World of Warcraft, the raid sets for every single character look so awesome. Like literally, I will be walking through the city in World of Warcraft, I'll see someone, I'll stop and I'll inspect their character every single time because they look so flipping awesome. But in this one, you know, there are cool parts of them, but say for example like the Titan in Crota's End, the chest is really cool, or like the helmet on the Warlock is really cool, or the helmet on the Hunter is really cool. The legs for most of them are pretty boring, but you know, just a little bit more variety would go a hell of a long way. Plus it would be nice if, you know, through gear variety, there were a few more ways to get to level 32. You know, I've seen a lot of people commenting saying they don't have a full party to do the raid, and they struggle to do the raid, and therefore they can't hit level 32. That's fair enough, and you know, I appreciate that, and that is kind of like, you know, it's a difficult thing to deal with. But if there were multiple ways to get to level 32, I think it would be great, not just because it would mean the people that can't raid can still sort of attain that level, but also just because of variety. I mean, right now, if you want to be level 32, you're either going to have 1 exotic and 3 pieces of raid gear, which means for the most part you're going to look identical to someone else, or you're going to have 4 pieces of raid gear. Either way, you're going to look pretty much identical to every other level 32 out there, all by your shader and your choice of exotic. Whereas, if there were different ways to be level 32, then it not only means it's achievable for different people in different sort of like scopes, but it also means there'll finally be some variety. You know, you could be a group of 32s, all of whom look completely different. One could say have some raid gear, one could say have some full faction gear, one could have fought their way all the way through the Crucible to get to level 32. One might, like, you know, have it because they've gone and explored the world, found loads of crazy hidden armour. I don't know, but the point is it would be nice to have a lot more variety. Then moving past that to the next section under my items topic, and that is a new level of rarity. Right now you have whites, greens, blues, purples, which are legendary, and yellows, which are exotic. However, if you've been playing the game long enough, then exotics don't really feel that great. I mean, you have Zur, who sells exotics every single week. Admittedly, he might not sell the one you want, and he might sell the same ones over and over again, but for the most part, if you stick around long enough, he'll normally sell pretty much everything, so you could have bought it from him, and what you haven't bought from him, you'll either get from a chest in the raid, maybe a random drop from the Nightfall. The point is, play the game long enough, and you'll probably have all the exotics. But what I'd like to see is a new level of rarity, an item which is so rare that literally only a handful of players have got it. If you take World of Warcraft, for example, there's an additional rarity and the items are orange. These are so rare. Like, literally, you could go your entire World of Warcraft experience never seeing anyone wield this weapon because it is that damn rare. You know, I think one of them back in the Burning Crusade days was this sort of like big green blade from one of the bosses. Had an orange name, looked really, really cool. You know, if someone is wearing that on the back, you damn well know it's a super, super rare weapon. You know, I forget the kind of like terminology of World of Warcraft for it, but you know, having that would be so damn awesome. Like, that's something that Zur could never sell, or something you would never ever get out of, say, like a chest, or something you would never get. You know, it should probably be one of those things that is purely sort of tied to, say, like an epic boss battle. It wouldn't even necessarily need to be like a raid boss. It could just be like a world boss or something. But it should be something that has such a low probability of drop that very few people in the game have it. Now, I appreciate from like an outsider's point of view, you might say, oh, but that'd be really annoying because I might really want that weapon and I would just never be able to get it. Yes, that's true. But at the same time, flip it on its head. If you were that one person that had that weapon and everyone else was walking past being like, oh, I really wish I had that, you would feel like the absolute boss. So I think that would help mix up the exotics a bit and just make things a little bit more varied. Next up, on the topic of exotics, I want to see more variety in the sort of way that exotics affect your talent trees. The Helm of Inmost Light is probably one of the most interesting exotics, for the simple fact that the key perk gives you Headstrong and Death from Above for your Fist of Havoc ability. Now, by doing that, by having it activate those two talents in the tree, it then leaves you free to spend your talent points elsewhere. Whereas all the other exotics affect you in a different way. It's typically like a passive thing, albeit very useful, but I think the Helm of Inmost Light really does sort of like, you know, allow you to kind of change the way you build your character. If you look at, say, a build, you know, everyone goes through, puts their points exactly where they want to sort of have their character play out the way they want it to. But by having an exotic actually fill in one of those parts, it does leave you free to sort of like tweak things around, which means you do change your builds up. And I think that's a really interesting mechanic. You know, for example, as a hunter, a piece of armor could give me triple jump as a blade dancer, and I know that already exists. But then that would leave me free to put a point in Blink, which would therefore allow me to have a triple jump and then a Blink. I mean, that's just a bit crazy maybe, but it's just an idea and you get the point. The fact is, something that has a direct effect on your talent tree is a lot more interesting than just something that, you know, gives you an extra dagger or gives you an extra, like, grenade or something like that. So yeah, I think things like that could be a really, really interesting use for exotics. Then lastly, on the topic of items, I want to talk about trading. Now, I appreciate Bungie have said in the past that they don't want to introduce trading because, you know, someone might just go out as a high-level character, get all the armor for, say, like their friends, and then their low-level character will hit level 20, you trade all the armor, and then suddenly everyone's level 32. So I appreciate why they're going to say no to that. So perhaps what they should do instead of that is introduce an auction house. I mean, this is something that would tie quite nicely with Zur, given that he's a bit of a shady individual, but an auction house could be an interesting way, because then you can't directly trade with your friends, but you can still sell items or get rid of items that you don't want and potentially acquire other items. And this way you could put items up for money or potentially even different things. I mean, there are so many different currencies in Destiny. You could say, right, you know, I need 100 Vanguard marks, so I'm going to sell the Helm of Inmost Light for 100 Vanguard marks, or I'm going to sell Radiant Dance Machines for 50 Crucible marks, or you could say I'm going to sell Galahorn for 10,000 Glimmer and a Commendation. The point is, it would be really cool to sort of like use different currencies that way, because then you as the seller can get something that you want out of it, and then you as the buyer can get something that you've been after. I mean, you might, for example, Galahorn, you might have been looking for that for ages, or you might not have bought it when it first came around, and then now finally you can buy it from someone. But if Bungie wanted to further restrict that, they could adopt something, say like in World of Warcraft, where when you get rare armor, if you equip it, they have this mechanic called binding. When you wear a piece of rare armor, it's bound to your character. But before you wear it, you can then sell it or auction it. So that way, for example, if you were in the raid, you open a chest, you've got an exotic, and you're like, oh, I've already got this, I don't need this. Provided you don't wear that, and therefore bind it to yourself, you could then sell it on the auction house. But if you then decided you wanted to try it on, see what it looked like, then you've suddenly instantly bound it to yourself and you're restricted to just dismantling it and that's it. So that way you could still introduce the idea of sort of selling and trading through an auction house, but with restrictions in place that wouldn't just allow people to pass things around freely. And if Bungie wanted to further restrict it, they could even introduce an NPC like Zur, or even Zur himself, who could be the manager of the auction house and who could then appear only at certain times during the week. So that way the auction house wouldn't be available at all times, but would instead be available at predetermined times. And on that bombshell, that is the end of this video. So they are my thoughts for items and improvements for items. Remember, if you haven't seen the one on stories, then make sure you go back and check that out. But just as a recap, I want to see more variety in gear, both weapons and armor. I'd like to see a new level of rarity for items that are super, super, super rare. I would like there to be more exotics that have effects on your talent trees. And I would like to see an auction house introduced that will allow you to buy and sell items of different rarities, so that way you don't just have to dismantle your items. So that's it for this video, but make sure you tune in later this week for part 3 of the Destiny Improvement Series, where I'm going to talk about changes I would like to see to gameplay. So thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to smash that like button, hit the thumbs up down below and show your support. It does really help us out. And obviously don't forget to subscribe for daily gaming videos. Drop a comment down below and let me know what you think about some of these suggestions. And if you've got any yourself, then also drop them down below. And thank you very much for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.